Hi friends, this is Fanibhushan Nagula. Today we're going to learn listeners. So in our early session, we have seen a couple of listeners as part of JMeter, and today we are going to learn those listeners in detailed way. So let's look at JMeter, right click on the test plan, go to add, you can see the listeners. So the listeners can be added at a test plan level, thread group level, and also at a sampler level. So what these listeners mean? So these listeners are used to collect and display the performance test results. So the information which gathered by these listeners can be shown in various forms. One is tree or it's a table. Like for example, we have used view results tree. It shows the results in tree format, and we have uh, table, view results in table. So we can also view the results in table format. And we have some graphs also, like the graphs can be seen. And apart from it, we can also simply write the response, the results to the file. So we have different listeners which displays the response information in different ways. However, they all write the same raw data to the output file. So for example, let's go and understand this. Let me add a thread group and let me add a sample HTTP request. I want to access navaltesting.com and let me use the, the listener view results string. So as part of this, we have under the view results tree, we have name, which talks about the listener report name, and you can also provide some comments to understand what kind of the results which are captured here. And apart from it, so we have write results to file or read from the file. So it if you already have the execution report exported from the previous test runs, so you can browse the file and the results will be loaded onto the page under the listener. So we will try this option also. So I just want to change uh, the name, like I want to use the server name as the sampler name, and let me save this file, and let me go to F performance in JMeter and scripts. In the scripts, let me use this as listeners. So we are going to try this. I'm just going to use 5 threads, and the ramp up period for this is 5 seconds. Now I'm just going to execute it. I'm just executing it. You observe it. So all the 5 requests, all the 5 threads successfully ran, and now when you select the result, so that you can see on the right side panel, you can see there are 3 tabs here. One is sampler result tab, one is request tab, one is response data tab. So the sampler result contains the response code and the response message and the response headers. And apart from it, You can also find some, it doesn't have any cookies information, but if there are any cookies, so you can also find some cookies information here. And apart from it, if you look at this, there is the response. It contains the load time, it can connection time, latency, and the size in bytes. So this all information, it's very difficult to rate for each of the requests. So, but if you look at that, this is the total 1645 milliseconds it took. So this is the load time. And now, even if you look at the request tab, it contains information about our request, which is our get method, and we don't have any cookies in this, and we have some request headers, and also you can see that means the connection, keep alive, and host and user agent, some information here. And when you go to the response data, it contains the response body of this the sample which you have requested. So the response received from the server. So it is the sample response body. And now, if you look at this, you can view this response in various formats here. If you just click on this drop down, there are various things here. Now, if you see here, you can render the information in various formats. In a simple, now by default, it is showing in a simple text format, and apart from it, you can use regular expression tester or boundary extractor tester, CSS, XPath, JSON, HTML source formatted, and HTML download resources. So you can use various formats. Now let me select HTML here. So this is the complete HTML of our navaltesting.com page. And so let's understand the other options what we have here. So if you look at this uh, log display only, there are two options here. It's log display only, errors or success. So if you are selecting these options, you can it will capture the results are captured accordingly, either the errors or the success or both. And apart from it, even if you look at this configure, so this configure is it is showing that the sample results can be saved in different formats. And if you look at that, what information you want to capture as part of the result, and this can be in a CSV or JTL or XML. CSV files are much smaller than XML files, so it's preferable to use CSV. So apart from it, if you look at this, so you have save as XML, and there are some cases in the parentheses you can see XML. Wherever you see the XML in the parentheses, it is applicable for only the XML format, and the rest is you can use it for the CSV also. So I just leave this the default, and if you want to use the I want to write the results to a file. For example, uh, let me go to use this performance testing JMeter, and under the scripts. So this is the path. I want to use this path and say listener view results tree dot CSV. This is the format which I'm mentioning here. And let me erase all the results, save it, and again execute it now. So yeah, all the 5 threads got executed successfully. Now let's go back to our F folder in the under the script. So the name what we're given is listener VRT. So let's go and double click on this CSV file. See, so the default you can see it captured the timestamp, elapsed time, labels. So the label what we have given is the navaltesting.com and the response code and the response message, thread name, data type, success, whether true or false, and the failure message if there are any failures, and the total number of bytes received, and the request byte which sent to the server, and the group threads, and all threads, latency, idle time, and connection time. So we will understand, we will try in the next listener, we will learn about what is latency mean. But if you look at that, so this is the format, the default format, which is captured as part of the response, the result. And let me close this CSV file again. I'm not going to save it. Now let's so there are as part of the listener. So we need to be very careful when you're using listeners, because the listeners are used for debugging purpose only. So why? Because the listeners consumes lot of heap memory. So whatever the the heap capacity what we have allocated to this JMeter application, it consumes those that memory. And the JMeter listeners generate why, the reason why and how the the memory is consumed, because these listeners generate a lot of redundant load on your local machine, and it creates, these listeners create a lot of objects in the heap, and that might occupy most of our heap space. So that is the reason these listeners are preferred to use for debugging purpose. So when you have faced any out of memory error while executing, and when you're using the GUI method, means when you have opened launched the JMeter and executing uh, the test plan, and if you have seen there are any errors because of out of memory, and you need to go and increase the heap memory there. So to increase the heap memory, I'll just show you that uh, in your JMeter. Let's go to downloads, JMeter, under bin, go to jmeter.bat file, open that bat, and let me just control F and say heap. Sorry, heap. See here. So it is set 1 GB, but if you still want to increase it, you can increase the heap memory based on the configuration what you have in your local machine. So I'm not going to change my heap memory. And now let's go and understand other things here. So what we have seen, view results. So the view results also displays failed assertions. So you might have seen in our earlier session, but now understand a little bit more here. It also displays failed assertions and compares the expected and actual results. However, if the assertion passes, the success is not displayed. For example, let me right click on the request, or maybe if you're adding the assertions at a test plan level, that is still fine. I want to use assertion at a request level. I'm under the request. Under the assertion, I'm just going and selecting response assertion. So I'm saying I want to check the response code, and it should be equal to 200. I'm expecting the response code 200. So for example, now I'm not going to use this under the view results. So I'm not going to use this file for writing this, but Control S and erase all the results. Now again execute the scripts now. So if you see, if the results means the assertions are passed, it will not show the assertion in view results tree. If there are any failures, then only it will show and show the comparison expected versus actual results. Now let's see here now. I am changing it to 201. Now again go and execute this now. See here. Now something is failed. Now the failure, if you expand this, then you can see the response assertion. It's assertion failure message. Code expected to equal, and it received 200. So you can see the difference also. It is saying the third digit, since it is in the ones position, and the comparison set is showing it received 200, and it is having, it contains 201. This is what we have in the assertion. So all the requests are failed for the same reason. So this is how the view results tree will be used. And apart from it, if you want to search anything in the response, you can use this search box here. So, and apart from it, you can also use the regular expressions, which we will discuss in the next session about the post processors. Now, apart from this, so we also have, apart from this, we also have assertion results as part of listeners. So let's understand this assertion results also. So if you, this assertion results, it displays the results of all the assertions in its scope. So for example, let me show you this first, then you will understand. Yeah, now if you see here, there are no issues here, nothing. So but that's the reason you can see all the labels which I've used, or the names, or the sample names, and everything is passed. Now if there are any failures, now let's go and, when as part of your assertion, you have used 201. If there are any failures, how it will be? Now Control R, see here, whatever we have seen on the view results tree, again in the assertion results tree we can capture it. So the response assertion test failed, and the code expected to, it received 200, and it is having 201. So again, the assertion results, whatever the listeners are using, these are not preferable, and these are just need to be used for the debugging purpose only. Now let's go and look at the other listeners. Let me disable this response assertion. Now let me add one more listener aggregate report. So this aggregate report is similar to summary report, and apart from it is have more metrics now here. You can see a lot of metrics. This average, median, 90% line, 95%, 99% line, minimum, maximum error percent. So we'll learn each of these metrics now. And apart from this table, so the rest of things are common for all the listeners. Like you will have name of the report and the comments and write results to a file or read from the file. So for example, if I am browsing to the previous one, listeners VRT, the CSV file. So see here, I can load the results onto this listener. So once it is available, I can browse the file and I can load those results onto any listener here. So, but let me remove this and erase everything. Now, let's run this nav thread group with 10 users, just a little bit more, and execute it now. So you can see various things here. The results are getting updated and now the execution is done. So the first one is we have one sampler, which is the naval testing. This is the request. We use 10 threads, 10 samples, 10 threads. So if you have iterated it will be more there. But when you look at this, the number of virtual users, for this request, and this is the average time taken by all the samples to execute this specific request. So for example, so each one of the sample might have different response time. So the sum of response times by the total number of samples is your average response. So this is in milliseconds, average response time in milliseconds, 1430 milliseconds, it means 1.4 seconds. So apart from it, we also have median. So the median talks about the median. So it is the time in the middle of set of sample results. So for example, let me so I have three, I have 5, I have 7, 8, 4. So if I have this is mine, then I need to put it in the ascending order, and the middle value will be the median, the middle. So I'm just using 3, 4, 5, 7, 8. So this is the middle value. This is called median. So median is the time in the middle of set of sample results. It indicates that 50% of the samples took not more than this time. So that is the median here. Now, apart from it, we also have, means before we discuss about 90% line, 95%, 99%, let's understand what is minimum, what is maximum. So the minimum talks about the shortest time taken by the sample So it is the one of the sample out of 10 requests or 10 samples, one sample got the shortest time. That is your minimum. So for example, out of 10 requests or 10 samples, one sample got 923 milliseconds. And the maximum talks about the longest time taken by a sample. So this is the maximum time taken by one sample in 10 samples. So out of 10, one sample got the maximum longest time. And error percentage. If there are any errors as part of your request, so the percentage, so for example, out of these 10 samples, one is failed, it gives 10%. So like that, so the error percentage is talking about the if there are any samples which are failed. And throughput, the throughput is the number of requests that are processed within a time unit. The time unit here, what we're using is the JMeter is in seconds. So the number of requests that are processed per time unit. So you have 10 requests here and 1.8 requests are processed in a second. And apart from it, we also have received the KB per second. This talks about the amount of data downloaded from the server during your performance test execution. So if you understand this, this is very important at the same time. So the amount of data which is received, so which is received or downloaded from the server, 77 kilobytes per second is received. That's one. That's the size. If the size is more, then performance is good, or you can say the network or the server process, and the performance is also good. And at the same time, you also have send. The send is as part of your request. So now let's come back to our what is 90% line here, 95%, 99%. These are not percentage, but it's basically a percentile here actually. So let me take you to the, so for example, we have request 1 which took around 3 seconds, and request 2 which the response time for this is 5 seconds, and request 3 I'm saying 4 seconds, request 4 I'm saying 5 seconds again, request 5 I'm saying 7 seconds, request 6, now I'll say so request, say let me say this is 6 seconds, this is 6 seconds. Now what we have to do is we have to put these numbers in the descending order. So let's put it in the descending order. So I'll say 7, 6, 5, 4. Yeah, I think 5 came twice. 5, 4, 3. Maybe I need to use 4 more requests for more clarity. Request 7, and I'll say 6 seconds, request 8 seconds, request 9 7 seconds, request 10 7 seconds. So let's put this in the descending order. 8 is the large one, and the 7 and 7 we have 1 2 3 2 3 times, and 1 2 3 3 times, and 6 is 2 times, 6, and 5 2 times, 5 2 times, and 4 5 2 times, and 4. Okay, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 9. So something again after 4 we have 3 also, 3. So now these are the 10 samples. So out of 10 samples, let's, when you talk about 90%, this 10% at the top, can keep it aside. You can, I'm just I'll just make it red, and this is the 90% line. So it talks about the 90% of the samples took not more than this time. It will be less than 6 seconds, 7 seconds only. So that is the meaning of 90% line, and it's the same thing why with 95%, 99% also. So 90% of the samples, so these are 90% of the samples which took not more than 7 seconds here. So that's what we are going to, it means if you are looking at the 90% line, this talks about, okay, and we are talking about average 1.4 seconds and median 1.19 second, and the 90% line is showing 2.12 seconds. So it means if you again compare it with your maximum, it is 2.146. So you need to have some comparison here. You need to do some comparison with average, median, and your maximum. So then only we can able to find whether it is good or bad. So like we will discuss about this analysis uh, and the root causes and the recommendations what we need to give as part of the performance testing. So, but in terms of this 90% line, the number of 90% samples which took not more than this 2.12 seconds. So this is about the aggregate report. Now let's go and add one more listener now. Under listener, I have summary report here. In the summary report also we have, let's execute it again, and I'm just executing. So if you see here, the samples are 10 samples. We have average 1.06 seconds and minimum 944 milliseconds, maximum 1295 milliseconds, and we have a new metric here. We have a new metric here, standard deviation. Standard deviation, it shows the set of exceptional cases. So it's very important metric here as part of the performance system. It talks about the exceptional cases. So these exceptional cases are deviating from the average value. So for example, if you look at the average is 1060 milliseconds, and here it is standard deviation 120 milliseconds. So it is deviating from the average value of sample response time, and the lesser the value, it is more consistent. It's good. From the performance testing point of view, it is good. So as part of the performance testing, the standard deviation should be less than or equal to half of the average time of this label, of any label. So for example, if you look at the half of this average, so it would be around 500 milliseconds. It is still less than the half of the average time. This is the benchmark the industry follows. So that's how these metrics now. Now apart from it, now let's go and look at one more listener here. I'm adding one more listener. View results in table. Let's go and add view results in table. So here there is means we are talking about tables which were discussed: aggregate report, summary report, and again we are talking about one more table now. But what is the difference here? Let me erase all the results now and execute it. Okay. Yeah, the execution has been done. If you see the difference here, so you have used aggregate report, it used one label and execute all the samples, and you can see only one record here. But when it comes to the view results in table, so it displays the listener, this view results in table listener displays information about each sample. If you have 10 samples here, each sample result has been shown here. So this table contains the results of each sample, and the table shows the time related data for each sample. And also if you look at that, it's the response time for each sample, and talks about the status. If it is passed, so it doesn't have any errors, it means that it's a pass icon. And you can also see the number of bytes which received from the server, sent bytes, latency, and connection timeout. So latency means it talks about the first byte received. The first byte received. You have received sent a request to the server, and the server processed the request, and it sent the response, and the first byte which received. So the time which is calculated, so the first byte which is received is 522 seconds for this first sample. So that's how you can look at this. If the latency is smaller, then automatically the performance is good. So this is about view results. Now let's go and look at few more samplers here. I'm Let's go to listener. Let's look at simple data writer. So, as the name says itself, the simple data writer, this listener can write results only to the file name that is provided. So, even if you cannot load the file, the results file which is already existing from the previous test run, but this because it doesn't have anything to show as part of your previous test run. It just can write the results only. So if you can again as part of the log or display only, you can only select errors or success or anything, and you can also configure your results. Now let's let me again let's go to perform testing and scripts, and let me say simple data writer CSV. So let me disable all these things. Yes. Let me execute it. I just want to use only with the string just to see that my execution is everything is passed. And because I'm just using only 10, I'm just injecting only 10 users. Otherwise, again, it will consume a lot of memory and my system will hang. Now let's go to this path, simple data writer. So let's double click. So let's open this. Yeah, some results are there. I can now my objective is, let me go to aggregate report. Let me enable this now. Let me go to browse, use this. Yeah, now you can see, and let me go to view results in table. Let me load this result file. I can see the result here. Everything is passed. So wherever you load these results, it will show the results as per the listener. So simple data writer is just to write the test results to a file. Now, apart from this, now let's go and understand one more thing here. So we have one more which is similar to this, but let me take you to the listener and save response to a file. So this save response to a file, as the name says, it's you are creating the response file here. So you're creating a response file, but it is little different from the earlier simple data writer here. For example, it will create a response file for each sample in its scope. Now I want to disable everything here. Let me disable it. I'm using Control T for disabling all these. And you should place this save response to a file just above the listener. Now, for example, I want to use prefix. So here file name prefix. You can give something I'm saying JMeter response. So this is my JMeter response. So here what I will do is let me use this view result tree itself. Um, let me open it and delete all the results here. Yes, save it. Yes, save it. Yeah. Copy this path and now use it here. Control E, Control S, Control E, Control. Now this go and execute it now. So it says append overwrite existing file. I'll say overwrite existing file. Now let's go and so execution has been done or what? Let me, yeah, execution has been done. Now let's go to our, let me, yeah, we need to provide the path here. Yes. Now let's go and execute it again. You can override the existing file. Now if you go here, so here if you see JMeter response, so the one what we are trying to prove here is the each sample response is captured when you're using save response to a file. So JMeter response is the prefix which are used, and it will use the count for each sample. It will use 1 2 3, so after the prefix. Now if you just open this HTML file, if you open this, the response is captured in a file, HTML file. See here, the response. If you, this will be very helpful when you want to capture the response of each sample. And apart from it, if you look at here, the variable name. So name of a variable in which to save the generated file. So this can be referred later point of time. So what happens when you're providing the variable name here? So name of the variable will be referred for the whole response data. And you have save failed responses only, save success responses only. Don't add number to prefix. So if you're not adding it, it will overwrite it. So don't add suffix, add timestamps. So for example, if you're using timestamp, let me again, let's go and let me delete all these files. Now again, Control S, Control E, Control R, I'm over at the existing file. Now again, let's look at it. See here, the timestamp. So as we have selected the add timestamp, it is adding the timestamp to this prefix. And apart from it, you can also see minimum length of a sequence number. So if you want to use any length of sequence numbers, it can be used. By default, it is 0. So this is how the save response to a file listener will be used. Now let's go and understand few other listeners. So right click on this sampler, go to listeners, and you can see we have learned about view registry, summary, aggregate. So this is for when you're doing the backend performance testing, and we have aggregate graph. So let's use this one. Maybe let me use this at a. And now there are few things which you can use it here. Now let me Control S, Control E, Control R. Let's execute it now. So here, whatever we have seen as part of the aggregate report, the same information is available at a aggregate graph also. So apart from this table, the metrics which is shown in the table, you can also look at the graph. So the graph shows that for each label, the response time, the average response time. So it is 997 milliseconds. If you have any other things, it will show for each label. It will show it in the graph files. When you have a bar chart, it will be more easy to understand. So that's how these things will help us. And now, apart from this aggregate graph, even we also have. Let's look at yes, response time graph. So this response time graph will help us to understand the response of a. Let me disable this aggregate graph and execute it now. Control S, Control E, Control R. Your execution is still going on. Yeah, done. Now let's click on this display graph. So I think I'm able to generate the graph, so not enough data. So because I'm just using only 10 users, and the interval what it has been set is 10,000 milliseconds. It is around 10 seconds. Now let me make it 100 milliseconds. Now again execute it. So yeah, execution is done. Now I click on the display graph. Now still it is unable to generate the. So it's not able to. Okay, let me apply this interval and click display now. Yeah, now we can see for each 100 milliseconds how this data is moving. So this is the response time graph. It draws a line chart. It shows the response time during the test execution for each label. So because we are just using only one label here, or naval desktop, so that is the reason you will see only one here actually. But if you have multiple, it will be multiple things here. So this is how the response time graph will be used. And apart from it, so if these listeners are not helping us to understand the performance test results, We can add more listeners uh, when you use plugins. We just need to go and download all these the plugins which are relevant to uh, the listeners, like if anything which are required as part of the listeners, then just download it, and again it will install. You can just install it, and you will be able to analyze the results in better way, and to find the root causes, and to recommend what solutions can be best suits for the problem. So today we just talked about listeners. In our next session we talk few more features of JMeter. Like now let's the we did not talk about the post processors and assertions, timers. So we'll talk about these three topics also in next session. Thanks for watching the session.